So I want to start today different than what we usually do. We've usually just skipped over the things that come before the chapter. But I loved both of these poems. And I wanted to read them out loud, or have you read them out loud. I'll do the first one. It's called Conjured by Honoré Fanon Jeffers. How old? How tall? How kind? We won't ever know, but Samba kept plotting the demise of the French until his end, and all right, that's a tragedy for him, the one whose name means second son in the Fulbe language, as well as those conspiring Africans who died alongside him. Were they conjured, as that Frenchman claimed, his excuse for scoring their flesh with fire, those men who dared to want freedom? Or did those brothers simply love Samba, a man who revolted once before back in Africa in some port that was constantly tugged between the French and the Portuguese? Samba had refused to accept slavery. Perhaps he knew that death is a blink of pain before crossing to a place of no bondage. And aren't you reading Samba's story right now? Aren't you purling your lips around his people's language and tasting the blood of struggle? And what of that colonizer who resorted to the cowardly wheel, reporting what he believed to be victory over Samba? Be honest with me. Will you even remember that Frenchman's name? Tell me how that poem makes you feel.
Incredibly sad for all the torture that these black men, I mean, not this poem particularly is about a black man, but what they, I mean, just to be burned alive, to be pulled apart, I mean, it makes, it's like sometimes I wonder how people think of such every way they can to torture somebody, and I'm like, why would you even, what is in somebody that allows them to do that?
Yeah, and I don't think it's a singular thing, it's a lot of different things, because we've done it in a number of different places, in a number of different ways. And so to blame it on one thing is
You have to totally dehumanize something.
well, and also I think he's making the point, at least partially here, that as you read through it, he kind of makes the sense of he conjured something. He brought something into his mind to be able to say, this is why it's okay to. Right? And he made up a reason that in his mind gave him permission to. Justification, maybe is the good word for it.
And it reminds me of the same level almost of sacrifice that Jesus did.
Yeah, right.
That sacrificial piece.
That's why I love the line about Samba refused to accept slavery. Right? That's a great line, because we all have choices on a regular basis about letting somebody have a ruling over us, right? Be able to tell us what it is that we have to do or be. And not all of those are bad, but you have to also decide when it is that something has gone beyond. And for some of us, slavery wasn't out to go beyond. How about the rest of you?
Well, sadness captures it for me, just sadness. For all of us.
For even everything going on today. As we're sitting here, I mean, it's, yeah, it's International Women's Day, and most women and girls around the world don't have any freedom whatsoever.
Yeah. And in this chapter, it talked about some of those spaces where during the middle passage, certain things were just assumed. The whore hole, was that a horrible term? Right?
Well, that's what it was, yeah,
Yeah,
total health.
but just to call it whore hole makes it so that you don't have to accept that this is a person, but is it something less than, you know, not worthy of regular behavior.
Why do we keep doing that though? To everybody and to ourselves? I mean, I'm wondering what's motivating the human race to perpetuate this ever since we've been on this planet.
Which part perpetuate, which part?
Injustice and inhumanity. I don't know why we keep doing that, digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper.
Well, and I'm not certain it's deeper and deeper. I think there's things that can be made to say that it is. But I wonder if we've taken some steps forward also. Are women in America at the same space as women were back? I don't know. That's what,
Well, based on this recent Supreme Court rulings
Oh.
and basically what the,
that's a step backward.
right, and what the
Yeah.
states are doing.
Yeah,
No, we're going backwards.
we are. But is that a permanent or is that
Who
part?
knows?
Just a
We don't
step
know.
backwards?
We don't
That's
know.
what I'm asking.
So
Barbara?
I have this feeling that our unconscious judgments frame my response to that poem was, well, that's exactly how I feel today.
Okay. And there
And
are parallels.
say what?
There are absolutely parallels. So I don't want to say don't feel that way because I think that absolutely
Well,
justified.
it's frightening to me how quickly I go unconscious. As you know, Jim, I love the soul group. And the other day I heard myself and I went unconscious and I told a joke. I said, I have a joke. And it was very inappropriate and very unconscious of a prejudicial frame that exists in my life. And for me, it was shocking. After the group, I usually go walk my dog, Higgins. Instead, I went and vomited. I was so shocked at how unconscious I can go in a nanosecond.
Yeah.
A nanosecond. It's frightening.
Yeah. But I think that's why we go back to some of those same behaviors again and again. Is because part of that is simple. For men, it's real easy, I think, to say, I'm stronger, I should have control over. And that's proven again and again not to be the right answer. But we still men assert control over women all the time
Yeah,
in so many different ways.
but it's, we,
When I got married in 1963, I was still a chattel in the state of Arizona for my husband.
Yeah,
I had to get permission to get my own bank card
yep,
and my own charge card. I mean, luckily the children's father loved me and had a deep realization I was always going to be their mother. But many times that sort of clear thinking isn't available to any of us. So what is the solution? I feel this class you're offering is one of the best things. I've told everybody here about it. And they're all like, well, why do we care? Well, it's us.
yeah. Because it's easier not to care, Barbara, that's the issue. Right, or to think that my rights are more important than your rights, and so we assert the one direction rather than open up to the larger picture.
No.
It's simple, yes.
I think it ties in with your sermon last week about places of comfort.
Yeah.
Could you talk about?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think
Gotta
it-
speak loud.
with the sermon last week about we default, it's nice to be comfortable. It's easy to be comfortable. And being aware of racism and misogyny and and our own unconscious biases or prejudices is scary and difficult.
And we love not having to think about life. Right? And to take some of the choices that we're talking about here, I have to stop and think. One of the best classes I took in seminary was about black-white relations, right? And Harry was this great, big, very gentle man, son of a preacher. We happen to be black. And in this class, they asked, how many of you have ever? And he had, right? He's a person who I can't even believe violence lives in him at all. He's just not that type of person. And yet he'd been stopped by police. He'd been mistreated. He'd been accused, right? And most people of color have that still today. Yeah. That story. And it's not that I haven't been stopped, but I've never been fearful of when I've been stopped. And to think that a large portion of our population have that fear.
I have had the fear when I stopped, but I'm the one that created the problem. With the person that
We
stopped
believe
me.
that.
Yeah, really. And so that was on me that I escalated with a really stupid guy. And he stopped me for no reason. And I drove an extra 2 blocks to park in front of the police station, and unfortunately, the police station was closed. But I asked, it went way up there and I brought it back down, but that was just really stupid on my part. And just think about, the guy was totally out of line, so just think about if I'd been black, what would
Yeah, you
happen?
would have been alive today,
Right.
City.
And I probably wouldn't have been stupid enough to escalate like that.
Well, but even the fact that you could escalate it and survive that,
Right.
because a black person would have to decide, do I want to escalate it because that makes the possibility of this even more. I can escalate it and still maybe survive.
And he could have shot me,
You could have.
and if I'd been black, he could have shot me, and he could have just said, you know, I was just a
Walk
boss.
away, walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Through this whole, as I'm reading through this whole chapter, the question that kept coming back to me was, why don't we anticipate that people are going to not like this type of thing? Why do we expect that people should just lie down and enjoy not being given privilege, not being held in slavery? And as they discuss the sugar plantations and the challenge and the barbarity that happened there, why is it that we're surprised that people say, like Samba, I'm not going to take it?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And maybe that's part of who I am, and having been bullied at a certain point in my life and stopped it, never to be bullied again.
Yeah.
So,
But for most of our history, we've assumed that black people aren't going to speak up. That we're doing something good and wonderful for them.
it's not
In
safe.
our barbarity.
Yeah, it's not safe for me to speak up, and we know we're not doing something really nice here.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, but those people knew that what they were doing was wrong. Most of them did. They knew it. They did all this rationalization and even held the Bible up to justify it. So it's amazing what people do in a power position.
I have an interesting song that I heard this week.
And I'm sorry I'm talking too much. I apologize.
That's all right. I have a really interesting song that I don't know how I'm going to use it yet. but it's called Hymn for the 81%. Have you heard of that? It's by a guy named Daniel Dietrich. The best I could figure out is that at one point or another, he worked in a conservative fundamentalist church in Indiana as a music person. And he wrote this in response to the 2016 elections, where 81% of evangelical Christians voted for Donald Trump. 81%. He said this: I grew up in your church's Sunday morning, evening service, knelt in tears at the foot of the rugged cross. You taught me every life is sacred, feed the hungry, clothe the naked. I learned from you the highest law is love. I believed you when you said that I should trust the words in red to guide my feet through a wicked world. I assumed you'd do the same. So imagine my display when I watched you lead those sheep to the wolves. You said to love the lost, so I'm loving you now. You said to speak the truth, I'm calling you out. Why don't you live the words that you put in my mouth? May love overcome and justice roll down. Second verse goes, oh, they started putting kids in cages, ripping mothers from their babies, and I looked to you to speak on their behalf. Oh, but all I heard was silence, or worse, you justified it, singing glory, hallelujah, raise the flag. Your fear had turned to hatred, and you baptized it with language torn from the pages of the good book. You weaponized religion, and you wonder why I'm leaving to find Jesus on the wrong side of your walls. Third verse says, maybe I was too naive. I just didn't want to see it. There's always been a little poison in the well. Our churches sit on stolen land, a nation built by stolen hands, and we use the Bible to justify it all. From slavery and segregation to mass incarceration, this is who we are, but not who we have to be. There's a lot of work to do to pull up the evil by the roots, but repentance has to come before there's peace.
You want to know something, what I would do, I mean, for different. Just make that your sermon, your next sermon.
It's a good thing.
I wouldn't even say a word after, just say I have a very, very short sermon, and I want you to think about it and use that.
Yeah.
But you're preaching to the choir too, so, but I would like a copy of that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Because I don't have I won't make copies.
He's preaching to the choir all the time.
Yeah.
It's great.
No, that is incredible.
Yeah, it's really difficult because we all justify things really easily, and we've done that justification for a long time, right? We let me put this up here.
You know what, that might be on the web, I could,
It is,
okay, okay, I'll just get the name later. I'm not gonna
yeah.
deal with it later.
I can get it for you.
Mhm.
The point is this, is what have we done for 400 years, right? From 1619 to today, that as essentially we've chosen to justify something instead of thinking about it. And much of that justification, they're bringing this up again and again, was an economic thing. It benefits me economically, and so I can. But how much today are we continuing to let economics, and how much do we buy into? I'm comfortable, I'm safe, why do I care about you?
Well, in our education system now, I mean, you look at DeSantis, and they're still trying to we can't make our kids uncomfortable, the white kids uncomfortable, not the black kids. They can be uncomfortable all they want.
Yeah.
But the white, it's like, well, studying American history, I was just